Hey guys, Evan here with Data Unmasked. If you're watching this is part 2 in our series on Postgres. This wasn't supposed to be a series, but over the weekend I recorded a video that was supposed to be a tutorial on standing up Postgres in a way that was actually kind of usable. Video was supposed to be around 10 minutes long, ended up being over 30. Don't know if you guys saw my post over on Twitter or not about how long it ended up being. So versus listening to me talk for 30 minutes straight about database configurations, I figured it'd be a better idea just to break it up into a couple of videos. So the first video is going to be on actually installing Postgres, putting it onto a VM, turning the VM on. The second video, which is this video, is going to be on actually configuring that VM once it's stood up. And then our third video in this series will be about actually using the database, making the connection from PgAdmin, and going in and writing a couple of queries. So if it seems to jump around a little bit, I apologize about that. Just had no idea how long this was going to be. Got way too excited about Postgres. That being said, today's video is going to be all about once you have your VM built, what do you need to do to get it configured to be ready to use so that you can jump into a tool like PgAdmin and write some queries. So before we get into PgAdmin, we got to get these configurations going. Coming up next. Before we do that, what we're going to do is we're going to switch over to the Postgres users. We're going to do sudo su Postgres. Now, this is saying, hey, as an administrator, I'm going to switch users to the Postgres user. Postgres always makes a Postgres user when you install. Now, you can see that my kind of formatting here on everything dropped off because that's a part of my profile that I've set up for my Vagrant user, but it's not a part of my profile for this Postgres user. So what I'm going to do now that I'm in here is I'm going to go into PSQL. Now remember, we left Postgres the ability, the Postgres user, to have peer authentication. So that's how we were able to just drop into this like that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create a new role. There's roles and users. We'll cover these in another video. For Postgres, we're going to make Vagrant, and we're going to give them super users so that they have the right permissions for what we're actually trying to do. Give them login access, and then we are going to give them an encrypted password. Now you can do whatever you want. This is a demo, so I'm just doing Vagrant 1, 2, 3, and we're going to put our semicolon, and we have created the role. So now what we're going to do is we're going to change the password for Postgres. So to do that, I'm just going to say /password Postgres, and my password for Postgres is going to be password. Once again, this is a demo. So, make sure that if you are using this anywhere, it's not just a demo, you pick a real password. Always ask it twice, just make sure you have it in the same way. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick look real quick at a special table that is going to let us know kind of what's going on with our passwords. And that is PgShadow. All right, so you can see in here now that I have a Vagrant user, I have a Postgres user. Both of them have a password. Both of them are encrypted passwords. You can tell they're an encrypted password because they start with the MD5. MD5 means that Postgres is following an algorithm. It's actually taking the plain text version of your password, encrypting it, and then storing it in an encrypted manner so that if somebody gets access to your database, like they can't just go in and see your password in plain text, or if there's some process running on your database, the passwords just aren't stored in plain text. And that's just a good kind of standard to go by. You don't want to store anything that's sensitive in plain text anytime you can ever help it. So now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to get rid of some public access because we don't want that going on. So the first thing we're going to revoke is we're going to revoke all on database Postgres. Now Postgres is the default database that Postgres creates with the owner being the Postgres user. That is a confusing statement. Postgres uses the word Postgres for everything. So our database is Postgres. The user that we're in as right now is Postgres. The Postgres user created the Postgres database when the server was made. Now all of these have some form of public access on them. Now public means that anyone that can connect to the server, so we just opened up the listen address to everything, would have access to this. So we're going to get rid of the revoke all on the database. Then we are going to revoke all on the schema. Now, whenever you make a database, there's always a schema called public in Postgres. And we don't want to have any public access to that either. And then, just in case there is any tables that are hanging out there right now, on all tables in schema public from public. All right, so we should be good. Now I'm gonna link a tutorial in the description below from a really good website that I found on this. Just kind of helps explain it a little bit better. Now that I have all that done, I'm gonna jump out of the PSQL shell for a minute. And the reason for that is the next command I'm gonna run, I actually have to run from the terminal. It's a create DB command. So we're going to use template 0. You don't have to use a template. But we're going to create a database. We're going to use the encoding of UTF-8. Our owner of that O there is going to be the Vagrant role that we just created above. And our database name is going to be DU demo for data unmasked demo. So I'm going to run that. All right, that's ran. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in as PSQL. Now I'm going to throw a user flag of Vagrant. And then I'm going to use the database of Postgres. The reason for that is this is my management database to take care of everything that I'm actually trying to do. So it's going to ask me for a password. That's Vagrant123. All right, so now I'm in. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to run 2 specific commands. I am going to revoke connect and temporary on database DU demo from public. And then I am going to revoke usage and create on schema public from public. I should have been in a different database for that. All right, let's go back to the other database. We're just gonna go back to that PSQL command. We're gonna be on the DU demo database. And 1, 2, 3. All right, so I'm just going to rerun this revoke usage and create on schema public because otherwise that's just not going to happen. Syntax error. I did not copy the R. All right. Perfect. All right, and now we are in the database that we want to be in anyways because we're going to make a schema real quick. All right, now this is called idempotent, which means this is only going to run if this doesn't exist. So we've now made this schema video 1. So we know that the Vagrant user already has everything revoked off of the DU demo database. So now what we're going to do is we're also going to copy again this revoke because we are on the database. And we are going to change public to video 1. All right, now the reason that we had the template above was you can actually go through and revoke all these public permissions off the template. And then when you create a database using the template, you don't have to go through and do this. Now, that's a bit more of an advanced topic, so we'll cover that at a different time. But that's just kind of the reason why we're doing that right now. So now what we're going to do is we're going to grab a couple of commands real quick that are going to let us make sure that we actually have done everything we want to do right. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do an L. All right, now our L is going to show us our databases. Now here I can see my users and I can see the access. So I'm just going to take a look at this real quick and make sure this makes sense for Postgres and our data unmasked demo. So this saying is Vagrant is the only thing that has access to the Vagrant database, and Postgres is the only thing that has access to the Postgres database, which is fine. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at our schemas on this database. So we're going to use dn plus, and I used /L in the first one to list all the databases. And now we can see here for our video 1 schema and for this, so Postgres has access to the public schema. It's the owner of the public schema. And our Vagrant user, which is the one we just created, our role, is the one that owns the video 1 schema. Now this is where we're going to be doing all of our testing. Now you can see here this little line. Now this line is saying, hey, the Vagrant role granted access to the Vagrant schema, and it has that usage and create access. Now, if you want to make sure, whether or not there's public access, whenever you see that plus sign, so if we go here to template 1, okay, if you don't see anything to the left of the equals before it gives a permission, that means public access. And if you see a plus sign here, Those are how you add all the different access C's together. So saying there's public access and there's access that's specifically been granted to the Postgres rule. Here we can tell we don't have to worry about public access because we don't have any lines. We have a blank to the left of the equal sign. So we're good to go. Our security is all set up. Everything